Hello, my lovelies. This episode has some mentions of the early days of my transition where I was not in a great mental health place, but doesn't go too far down the rabbit hole of things. Also, some mentions of physical intimacy, but nothing too crazy. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to my trans best friend, or Zappin and Yappin, episode 2. We're here with Angie, my electrologist. We're embarking on an adventure together, my friends. Now, I don't know how long this episode's going to be. Only you know, listener, because you can see how long the episode is. You have foresight. I do not. What I can tell you is that this is about to be a 4-hour electrolysis session. We're going to do 2 hours, then take a lunch recess, and then another 2. I'm not made up today. My hair is bedhead. You're getting pure, unadulterated, unfiltered Lily today, while she gets her cake pop bag zapped for 4 hours. I'm cracking Angie up. So hello, yes, welcome. We got some positive feedback from the last episode, so I figured I'd do it again, because why not? We're sitting here. My cake pop stick and bag are very numb right now. Might as well. I guess last time, what did I talk about? I talked about the dungeon that I went to. That was quite a trip. I can tell you a little. Well, I guess if I told you all about it, there's nothing else to talk about. So I guess that ends this podcast episode. I have nothing. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. First off, last time I didn't thank the lovelies. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who makes this possible. There's no ads on this podcast. I mean, maybe like on YouTube there's ads or something, but thank you to everyone who subscribes on Patreon, Discord, all those things. Those are the Lily's Lovelies. They make this possible by supporting the Patreon, the TikTok subscriptions, all these things. So thank you. Shout out to my lovelies. Let's see. I didn't come with a plan today. I literally have no idea what I want to talk about. All I know is that I'm getting zapped for a long time. Let's see. I guess maybe I can tell you a little bit about my dates in the past few days. I have been seeing someone named Emily lately. She is, I guess by the time you listen to this, she will no longer be on my Instagram story, which is, I guess, Angie, I can show you a picture of Emily when I'm done recording, because I cannot show you currently. But basically, she and I, let's see. You know what? I'll tell you about how we met. How about that? So Emily is a cutie patootie who works at a candy store in San Francisco. I, of course, am a candy appreciator. Angie, also, are you a candy appreciator? Yeah. What kind of candy do you like? Dark chocolate, nuts, caramel. What's your favorite, like, grocery store candy? Ooh, that stings. No, don't apologize. It's good. It's all about the Gucci Coochie. If for some reason you're listening to this episode first and not the other episode, I'm getting electrolysis right now. That's why I'm on my back and you're seeing like a weird angle of me, is because literally Angie, who is not her real name, but Angie, who's my electrologist, is taking a needle, putting it into the follicles on my lower area. That needle becomes electrified and zaps. Ooh, if it zaps. It zaps. It zaps. Okay. It hurts. And there's also, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but there's like a little electro because if you think of your body as a circuit, right? Like the needle is one half, the start of the circuit. The electricity goes through your follicle in your body. It has to exit somewhere so it can complete the circuit so that the electricity works. There's like a little wet sponge thingy on my back that allows the electricity to exit. Anyways, this is all in pursuit of the Gucci Coochie, which is what I'm calling it, the designer vagina, which I am going to get soon-ish. I don't know when, but we have a 4-hour session today, which is all in pursuit of that, because you need all of the hair removed before you can do that. Because when you flip things inside out, which is essentially what happens, you don't want hair there. It's just a no. It's no good. It's no good. So, anyways, Emily, I am dating. She and I go on dates. Now, a little history about Emily. She is engaged. Angie says, "Ooh, that's right. Engaged to someone." She also has another girlfriend. And then there's me. Okay? So, polyamory, of course. If you don't know what polyamory is, I encourage you Google it. But basically, it means you can date multiple people at once. You can get married. You can have girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. It's all above board. Not cheating. Just is. Polyamory. I walked into a candy store once in San Francisco, and I saw this girl, Emily. She's a cutie. She wears big earrings. That's like, she has a very unique style. Very like cottage core. You know what cottage core is, Angie? No. It's a you know how like they're attaching the word core to things now, like norm core, cottage core, metal core. It's like a thing with fashion these days. Like core describes kind of like a center of like a sensibility. So like cottage core kind of has like cottage vibes, like cozy, like big long dresses, frills, like nothing too angular or, you know, dramatic. It's like more of a modern, what would you wear if you were like living in a cabin somewhere, or a cottage, like a cute cozy little cottage with a little chimney and like a wood burning stove, and maybe you're gay. It's a gay thing too, kind of. She also wears big earrings. The other day she was wearing knitted or crocheted grapefruit earrings. They were like slices of grapefruit. They're very cute. So anyways, I walked in the candy store and I saw her and I was like, oh, she a cutie. And immediately the Riz. Do you know what Riz is, Angie? No. We're learning things here. Riz is something I've only recently become aware of too. Riz is the either, I don't know if you could call it Generation Z, maybe even Generation Alpha, the generation after Generation Z. Riz is the term for like game or ability to flirt. So like if you are rizzing someone up, that means you're flirting with them. If you have Riz, that means you are good at it. Like you're a good flirt. So I immediately was like, I'm not going to be too much here because she works at the candy store. It's her job to be nice to people. I flirted. I complimented her. I rizzed. I left. I came back another day. Did it again. I'm in that area a lot, so I just like peek my head and see if she was on shift. And she often was. So yeah, I mean, I eventually got her Instagram and we eventually went on a date. Now, we had a couple of very good dates. We had to pause things last May because this was a while ago. Because I think one of her partners was a little bit hesitant about polyamory, which was sad. But it was like, I respect it. All good, no worries. Maybe like a month ago, not even 3 weeks, she messages me and she's like, hey, this partner has become more cool with Polly and I would love to see you again. And I said, heck yes, let's do this. So we went on another date. It was all the chemistry was still there. Spark was still there. We catching up, caught up. And then yesterday we went on another date. Wait, what was our first one? Our first, most recent one. It would have been... God, my memory fails me. Was it because yesterday we did a date. The time before that we went on a date. I forget. Oh, y'all, it is too early in the morning. It is 9 a.m. right now. What time do you normally get up, Angie? 4 or 5? Is that comfortable for you? Do you want to get up at 4 or 5?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I have early appointments.
Okay.
Sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30.
That's really early.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Did you sleep in today?
I did a little bit, yeah. But I had someone before you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I had someone before you at 8 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm struggling because I know she and I went on a date, like our first time seeing each other since... Okay, 2 dates ago, we went to get food. Oh, no, I remember now. The first date was Thai. Did I talk about that on the last podcast? Thai food?
So I don't remember that.
Okay. We went and we got Thai food. And it was very nice. And she is very sweet and cute. Yes, we met at the ferry building. We went and got Thai food. It was great. The second date, I think we went and got food somewhere. We went to get burritos, and that was like the other day. That was since last electrolysis appointment. We went and got burritos, and she and I had a nice time, and then we went back to my apartment and cuddled and stuff. And that was fun. And then yesterday, we had like a little mid-morning afternoon date. And we met at Ikea and walked around. She's like a big Ikea fanatic. I think she used to work at Ikea, so she gets a discount. And she just got very excited about Ikea. It was kind of cute to watch. Of like she'd run, you know those like rooms they have that look like rooms but aren't. She would like be like, oh my God, and she'd like jump on a bed or something and like I want this, and she'd always be pointing at stuff like, one day I'm going to have this. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we had food there. We had the Swedish meatballs, both plant-based and meat, and mac and cheese. I can give you a review on these things because I have opinions. The first thing that I tried was the plant versus Swedish meatballs, the meat ones. I didn't particularly... I mean, I think they're really good meatballs, and they're very inexpensive, especially in San Francisco. The sauce on them is good. I think that's probably the strongest thing that they have is those meatballs, and they know it. It came with some like lingonberry sauce, which was good. So it kind of tastes like there's like the meatballs with gravy, there's peas, there's mashed potatoes, and then there's berries. So it really does taste like Thanksgiving. I think it was like $8 too, which is really good for like a meal. And like very few places I think they lose money on the cafe, but they want people to be in there to buy other stuff. Okay, the mac and cheese was bad. It was like you ever been to the Golden Corral, or it's like that. Just like soggy, not very flavorful. I give that a 2 out of 10. I'll give the meatballs like a 6 out of 10. There's a cinnamon bun we had. And I think the way they do their cinnamon buns is there's a factory somewhere. And they do a little bit of a glaze on the cinnamon bun in the factory. so that by the time it gets to you, that glaze is really not much of a glaze. It's more of just like a white sugar crunchy thing on top. I cannot recommend the cinnamon bun too much. It's definitely better than the mac and cheese. It's not like as bad. I would give it a 3 out 3 out of 10. From there, we had a chocolate chip cookie. I like the chocolate chip cookie. If I remember correctly, it was warm and pretty flavorful, pretty moist. Give it a 6 out of 10 as well. If I were to go back, I would get just the meatballs and a cookie. No cinnamon bun. No mac and cheese. Ooh, there's a good one. There's also a drink. They have like Ikea specific beverages. There is looks like a Coke. Ooh. Oh, good. Coke and a Diet Coke. But then they had these like very low sugar, almost kind of like sparkling water with just a little bit of sugar, like LaCroix, but with a little bit of sugar. And I enjoyed them. I had the pear flavored one, and I liked it. Anyways, and then she and I walked around. She and I discovered that we both walk really fast, which is something that not everyone does. And we do not have to worry about walking slow for people. The one disadvantage to that is that when you walk fast like I do, or like she and I do, when you walk fast like she and I do, you get hot and sweaty. So like, especially if it's cool out and it's like chilly out, you walk. It's all good when you're walking because it's chilly out and you stay cool. But then you arrive at your destination and immediately your body gets to like really hot. It's not good. Anyways. But yeah, then I dropped her off at her work, sort of. I mean, we just walked to her work together and I said bye. And then I streamed that yesterday and we got pizza, and then I brought her pizza afterwards because she was hungry. So yeah, that's fun. Emily's a cutie. I'll keep y'all abreast of our dates, I guess, if you like to hear about the dates. I would imagine you're listening. You've listened this far. If you listen this far. Now, on the flip side, tonight I have a date with someone else. Her name is Eevee, spelled E-E-V-E-E, like the Pokemon, named after the Pokemon. Do you know Pokemon, Angie?
Well,
Familiar with?
but I don't know the characters.
Can you name a Pokemon?
No.
Have you heard of Pikachu?
No.
You not heard of Pikachu?
Pikachu? Not really.
No, okay. If there was one Pokemon for anyone to know, that's like the most popular Pokemon.
No.
Pokemon are these little monsters, pocket monsters. That's what Pokemon stands for. And in the universe of Pokemon, these animals free roam the world, and there's a whole system by which you capture the animals and cage them in a small little ball, and then you force them to fight against each other. It's kind of brutal. Anyways, there's a Pokemon named Eevee that evolves into a bunch of different types of Pokemon, depending on the way you make it evolve. And there's one Pokemon in particular, or one evolution of Eevee in particular, called Sylveon, who is trans colors, white, blue, and pink. And therefore, Sylveon has kind of become emblematic of the trans community. In the same way that at Ikea, there's a shark plushie that is blue, white, and pink, and every trans person has one, called the Blahaj. I'm going on a date with Eevee tonight. Now here's the issue. Currently, Ruth, I'm totally numb down there. I can't feel anything. Well, for the most part. Eevee and I will hopefully be making use of me down there. Hopefully. we have four. We're only 20 minutes into 4 hours, so we're not even a quarter of the way done. And yeah, I mean, it's just a long road ahead, y'all. Am I going to be able to do things tonight? I don't know. In the past, it's only been like a few hours of like discomfort after the fact. The real question is, I mean, we finish at 2. It's 9 a.m., right? A little past 9 a.m. Evie and I are meeting at 6 p.m. I will be numb up until 2 p.m. and then the numbness hopefully will begin to go down. I can't imagine that at 6 p.m. on the dot, as soon as I see her when we meet, that things will begin to happen right then and there. I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8, something like that. So I have approximately like 6 hours post electrolysis to recover. Do you think? I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to speculate on. Leave a comment. What do you think? Do you think I'm gonna make it? Do you think I'll be okay? I think I'll be okay. So, confession. When I had my orchiectomy, which is when my cake pops were removed, I was intimate with Katie 24 hours later. Can you believe that? Still had stitches in, still was in pain. I didn't get myself all the way there, but I came close, and I was proud of that. There was a little bit of pain, but it was fun. I was into it. So anyways, that's the dating update. I don't have any fun dungeon parties to talk about this time. I'm sorry. I wish I did. I don't. Nor do I have any saucy adventures to tell you about. I wish I did. But I don't. Maybe I could tell you a story about something. What do you think I should tell a story about? Is there anything any things you would like to hear about, Angie? About my past? My life story? School? Relationships? Relationships? I could give you my it's been a long time since I've talked about this on the pod. I could give you my relationship history. I could recount it as fully as I possibly can, but from memory. And I won't use names of anyone. I'll only use names when there's I'll use fake names so that I can refer to people more easily. My full relationship history. Wow. Okay. Let's see. So I was born in 93, and then I probably had my first, I'm trying to remember. Okay. My first even like kind of girlfriend. This was like middle school. We hold hands and say hi to each other in the hallway. I think maybe we did a peck at one point. I do not know. But it was a girl named, I don't know, Felicia. I'm going to make up a lot of names. And we were in 6th grade, so 12 years old? Does that sound right? 11 or 12 in 6th grade. And yeah, I remember only a couple things about this relationship because it really wasn't a relationship. It was like a cute little thing between two kids. I do remember that she had, there it is. I'm kind of starting to appreciate the pain. It's fun. I don't know. I remember that Felicia had two moms, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of something like that. I knew about gay people, but I never met, to my knowledge, someone who had two moms or dads. Yeah, that one stings too. But Felicia was a sweetie, from what I remember. I remember that there was a fall festival at our school, and we, quote unquote, went together. And she had two moms. And now, the unfortunate thing about my 6th grade year was that I had to change schools about halfway through the year. And that effectively ended our thing. And it was very quick, so I didn't really have time to say goodbye to her. I did, however, have her email address. So I notified her of the termination of our relationship via email. I broke up with her via email, which was not my proudest moment. But I was in 6th grade, so I can't be too upset. I remember she responded with very upset emojis, which makes sense. I deserve that. The next person was the same year. It was a similar situation where there was no, it wasn't really. We held hands and hung out. She was more of like an actual friend to me over Felicia. We'll say this one's named Tawny. Tawny was actually we were legitimately friends, and I think just kind of attempted a relationship. I forget who broke up with. I think she might have broken up with me, now that I think about it. But it was a very short-lived relationship where I got very popular, weirdly, at that school because I was cast in the school show Cinderella as the prince, and it was a theater school, so that was the cool thing to do, was to be in theater. It was a weird school, so I had a lot of interest in me. There was a lot of interest in me during that show, and I capitalized on it, but I don't think I effectively held that relationship down, sadly. I don't remember much about it. I don't even know if we kissed. From then on, for the next couple years, I don't think there was much of anything. 7th and 8th grade, I had other stuff to worry about. Which brings us to 9th grade, where I would say that this is kind of like the BCE, the beginning of the common era of actual relationships, where it was not just holding hands and saying hi in the hallway. This was like a real girlfriend. There was someone named Taylor, and she she was very cute, I remember thinking at the time. And I'm trying to remember how. Okay, so she kind of embodied Zooey Deschanel and that, because this would have been 2008 or so. So this was peak manic pixie dream girl kind of thing of alternative bangs and I'm cool because I'm not cool kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was kind of her vibe, and I really dug it. She was yeah, I'm a total nerd. And she was very self-deprecating. She was also an artist. She had a very interesting sense of humor. Hold on, I gotta adjust my microphone. Hold on. Microphone adjusted. What did we say her name was? Taylor. Okay. And we had a flirtation. It took a while, maybe 2 weeks of flirting, and I definitely had taken an active interest in her and was courting her. And I think she was definitely back into me as well. And I eventually asked her out. Now I remember that she was into the kind of like ideal. Oh, who calling? Hello, someone's calling Angie.
Turn it down.
Good. She was into romance in like a almost like a cartoonish way of like she wanted to celebrate, and this was ninth grade, so like I don't hold this against her. Maybe she still does this. I don't know, but she wanted to celebrate every single month anniversary with not just like oh happy anniversary, with a handmade gift, because she was an artist, so she had a lot of creative energy. So every month she would give me some sort of like intricate drawing or like craft of some kind. And like, I was just excited to have a girlfriend. I was excited to be there because I liked her. I liked that she liked me, and it was nice. And we'd like, we had fun together. But I had to keep up with the gifts, and I tried. I really did. I went all out, but it eventually became less of a like fun creative exercise and more of a just like something I dreaded having to do, of like, oh my god, how am I going to outdo this month? And then as soon as that one was done, I was like, okay, what's the next month? Because we were probably together for like 7 or 8 months. But eventually we did break up. After that, I'm trying to think. Really, it was a series of just like, there's a couple like misfires here and there. I did. Once I turned 17, so junior year in high school, that's when sex became a thing. Physical intimacy became a part of it, right? Like it was not with Taylor at all. I wanted it to be, but it wasn't. When I turned 17, I lost my virginity. And I will tell you this story. Okay. I've definitely told this on the podcast before, but it's been a while, so I'll tell it again. If there's any inconsistencies, you let me know. Maybe my memory is faltering. We'll find out. It's a fun story. So I was not expecting any of it to happen. I was not actively trying to lose. I mean, I certainly didn't complain. I was very enthusiastic consent from my part. But the night that it happened, I was going out with some of my gal pals. We were having a girls' night. We didn't know it yet, but I was, we were all girls. So me and 3 other girls. 2 of them don't get names because they're not relevant to the story. Only their presence is relevant. And then the third girl, we'll call her Gina. Sure. Gina, a little bit of context for her. She and I weren't particularly close. I was probably closer to the other 2 girls that were at this girls' night. But it's fine. The 3 of us, fine, cool. We went to an Applebee's. Gina, it turns out, had just broken up with her boyfriend. Now, this information is very important. I was not thinking about it at all because I was caught by surprise by this entire situation. We go to Applebee's in Sarasota, Florida. Across from the Applebee's is a movie theater, at which was playing Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief? I don't know. We ate our food. good in the neighborhood at Applebee's, and then we went across the street and we went to see Percy Jackson. Now we're sitting in this theater and watching this movie when Gina's sitting next to me, and so I'm on the far right hand side. Gina's to my left, and then to her left are like the two other girls. Gina leans over to me and it's like, hey. And we're like maybe a third of the way through the movie. I remember they're at their little like God training camp or something. I don't know. And she's like, hey, do you want to like go back to your place and play some video games? I'm like, we are I'm like, girl, what are you talking? We're watching the movie. We're in a movie theater. And then a few seconds, she's like, oh, okay. A few more seconds go by, and she leans over and she's like, no. Do you want to go to your place and play some video games? And immediately what her meaning became clear to me. At which point I realized we were not going to finish this movie. No interest in this movie immediately. And I never saw the rest of that movie because we stood up, we looked at the other two girls who were very confused, and we simply left the movie theater right then and there. We each got in our respective cars and drove way too fast back to my place. It was probably like 9:30 at that point, which lucky for me means both my parents were asleep and my brother. We snuck in through the back door of my house into what the kind of, there's like a little room right there that me and my brother used to like play video games mostly. And there's like a little daybed futon in there. And me and Gina had unprotected intimacy right then and there. And for me, it was the first time. And in the moment, I had a great time, y'all. I was into it. Very fun for me. Afterwards, I was like feeling like, so cool. I was feeling so cool. I was like, I now to be totally transparent here, I was not expecting Gina to become my girlfriend. I barely knew this girl. I was not under any delusion that, are we gonna get married after this? Oh no. I thought this would be an FWB situation, a friends with benefits situation, and that would have been fine with me. Now, back to the earlier thing that Gina had just broken up with her boyfriend. If that had occurred to me at the time, maybe I would have just thought, this is a rebound, which again would have been fine. But eventually what I learned, and by eventually I mean first thing next morning. Oh, one other detail about before she left. I think I lent her, or she lent me, a Star Wars DVD, which I was very excited about because she was like a girl who likes Star Wars. I was like, oh, I love Star Wars. She likes Star Wars too. Like, this is going to work out real well. It was the Ewok Adventure DVD. She thought I would like it. Something like that. I forget. Anyways, I woke up the next morning, and it turns out what had happened is she had gone to her ex as soon as she left and let him know, well, actually them, because her ex eventually came out as non-binary, and I stayed in touch with them much longer than I did with her. Anyways, Gina let her ex know that we had done what we did in an attempt to make them jealous. And that attempt was successful. And they got back together that night. And I awoke to a text message, a Facebook message, and an email from this ex that I had classes with. I had a French class, I believe, with this person, and it was a very small school, so there was not much in the way of like being able to avoid them. These messages were all like kind of variations of the same thing, which was, you better never talk to her. Don't look at her. I'm watching you. She's my like very creepy, weird messages from this person. Now, from my point of view, I was scared because I didn't really expect it coming to happen this way. And also it just kind of felt like a betrayal. Like I wasn't expecting to be this person's everything. I was hoping just it would be kind of like a cool hookup situation. For it to go so far in the other direction, for her then to block me on everything and to basically pretend like I do not exist the next day at school, was pretty devastating. It's pretty devastating. I'm not gonna lie. And over the next couple months, I was like a mess because of it, because I just didn't, that like my first real intimacy with someone was so like, it was like, oh, is this how people have relations? Is this how everyone does it? Like, is this what I have to look forward to? And also because it was unprotected and because I had been lied to about her intentions, right? I was like, well, what did she lie to me about something else? Like, do I have an STI? Long story short, no, I didn't. But I was so scared and also just heartbroken that I felt the need to tell my mother. And I went to my mom and I said, Mom, last night I had unprotected relations with someone in this house while you were sleeping. And I am terrified that I have an STI now. And my mother, to her benefit, to her credit, was cool as a cucumber. She did not make me feel guilty about this. She did not punish me. All she did was help me solve this problem. And that was huge. And a big moment in our relationship, if I'm being real. She took me that day to a clinic of some kind where I received an STI test. All came back negative. I also received the Gardasil shot, which was an HPV vaccine. At the time, wasn't even approved for people with, my body. But I took it. Switching microphone hands. Anyways. So yeah, I was pretty devastated about that one. However, it didn't stop me from, now that the Pandora's box was open, like, oh, I like this. I like how that felt. Let's do that more. There was someone on my swim team, maybe like a few months later, who I had a similar situation with, although she did not do any sort of bait and switch on me. In fact, if anything, I did it kind of to her, which I feel bad about. But, we'd like, what name can we give her? How about Satine? Why not? We would like get in my dad's Toyota Camry and go to like this secluded little place called Jig's Landing, which was just like a bunch of trees and bushes, and do things in the car, or wait for her family to be out of the house for an hour, and then I'd run over and we'd do stuff. It was fun. It was like the fun of being 17, 18, and it was fun. Yeah, so that was, I think, it for, there was someone else, but I don't know if that's really worth mentioning. I had a couple other like flings that didn't really work very well, but college, we can talk about college. Let's see. I graduated in 2011, high school, and I went to Minnesota, McAllister College, for my undergrad. And And in freshman year, I had some luck in freshman year. Two main people that are of note. I had a couple hookups, if I remember. Yes, but around there are these dances that would happen, and from the college's point of view, the point of this was, okay, we have a bunch of 18-year-olds in dorm rooms that are going to be drinking alcohol whether we like it or not. And when they do this, they're going to want to go out and do stuff. So why don't we give them a really cool, like basically create a club for them every weekend or two to go and party and dance and grind up on each other drunkenly so that they don't go and make fools of themselves in the real world, right? Because we don't want a bad rep in the community, and we certainly don't want anyone to get arrested or, charged with underage drinking or whatever. And these dances were called Kagan dances. They were basically just a club. It was flashing lights. It was loud music. It was all these things. And people would like stumble in, grind on each other, and pair off and, go smooch in the corner or in their dorm room. And I was a freshman, and I went once, and I hooked up with a senior. So I was 18, she was 20 or 21, which was big for me because I was like, wow, look at you go, Lily. Wow, cool. She was very cute too. And if I remember correctly, the way it happened was we like made out on the dance floor, but then the next day I knew she worked at the student desk, and I'll give her a name. How about Kimberly? I knew that she worked at like the student info desk. So maybe it was the next day I went to go and just say hi to her and visit her because she was cute and nice. And I was like, you know what, maybe let's see if we can make something out of it. I don't know. She seemed nice, and she was a senior, so I was like, ooh, senior. And I turned on my my rizometer, if you will. And I just started chatting her up while she was working at the student info desk. And if I recall, that kind of turned into like friends with benefits, but eventually sliding into more of like a girlfriend situation with Kimberly, which was cool for me because even though I was 18, she was 21, we were in very similar emotional places in our lives. I think that she was struggling with about to graduate and having like also some unresolved trauma that obviously I won't get into, but she was very sweet. And I was also dealing with a lot of trauma, and, I don't know, we just kind of connected on that. And she was a senior, so she lived off campus, which was cool. So like when I visited her and her friends, they all had, they were all cool and they could buy alcohol, and I always felt like so cool hanging out with them. And yeah, I mean, it was just like she was just fun to be around. But also I think a little bit maybe, I don't know, there's definitely some, well, obviously it was not perfect. I think we probably trauma bonded a little bit too quickly, and that's always an issue when you get to a relationship. You don't want to just bond over trauma, because then what else do you have? But yeah, and the intimate times with her, they were very good. She was thick with a couple C's, and that's something that I appreciate greatly. And she had like a energy to her that was very fun. Anyways, eventually I broke up with her because she had just kind of like, I think she was really going through something, and I was not the person to help her with it at all. I forget exactly how it happened, but I broke up with her, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to have done that because things were getting a little bit too much there. Again, this was a decade ago, so I don't remember all the details. Okay. Around that time, I was doing some theater, and one of the shows I was in, there was someone in the show who was also a senior. She was a dancer. And oh boy, was she a cutie. We'll call her Stacy. Stacy and I were like having what you would call a showmance, where during a theater production, you get really close to everyone else in the show, because the whole thing about acting is you have to be really in sync emotionally in order to act with each other effectively. You have to be like in it with each other, and that can sometimes lead to romance. And that happened here. A lot of massages backstage, back massages, a lot of like, ooh, that's a real one right there. No, it's okay. And the thing that I learned about Stacy was that Stacy had a boyfriend who lived like a couple states away, long distance boyfriend. And now I'm not saying I'm proud of this, but I did not care one bit, and neither did she. And she cheated on her boyfriend with me. I remember I went over to her place, and she made me a gin martini. First time I ever had one of those, and it was good, and we had fun. Ooh. Anyways, we dated for the rest of that year, and she came to visit me, and then I broke up with her. Because here's the thing, y'all. This is a lighthearted recollection of my relationships, but if I'm being totally honest, I was a wreck in these years. Because when you spend this much time pretending to be someone you're not, oh, that's both painful to talk about, and electrolysis is painful. It's just hard, and I didn't like myself back then. So like, even though I could enjoy intimacy and still like have fun with these ladies, and enjoy being around them, I still could not form connections with people in that way. I could not form loving connections because I didn't love myself. So I did, if you see me like, what, Lily, why would you do that? The answer, I didn't like myself, and I therefore could not like really hold down a relationship. That's the answer. I eventually broke up with Stacy. It was not pretty. That takes us to sophomore year. And of course there was summer camp in between. I worked at summer camp. There was hookups that happened there. None of which are particularly... Oh, you know what? Actually, in between freshman and sophomore year, there was an interesting one. There was someone who I met who I was... again, this was much closer to like the hand holding, see each other in the hallway relationship. Weirdly, even though we were like 18, 19 years old. I remember at one point we were like an item at camp, and they told me, I think I'm bi. I think I'm bisexual. And I said, oh, cool. Thanks for telling me. Good to know. Sweet. And then at a certain point, we ended our itemship at camp. Fast forward a decade. Turns out that this person that I was, not even a decade, more than a decade at this point, fast forward to present, turns out that they're a trans man. And their name is Andrew. I didn't know them as Andrew at the time. But it's interesting because he and I were like ships passing in the night. I think we were maybe even envious of each other in a way. You see this happen sometimes where trans men and trans women, before they know, will pair up. Okay, we're good. For example, Oliver and Quinn. I don't know if either of you are listening. Hi. Oliver is a trans man. Quinn is a trans woman. They were partnered far before either of them knew that this was the case. And they had kids. They have kids. I think what happens is subconsciously you can identify that sort of safety in someone and that like similarity, so that when your body is almost like kind of planning ahead for you, right? Like, hey, this is someone that is going to understand when we finally face that thing, because they're the same thing, right? It's the same thing with Andrew, and now he's married to a lovely lady and has a kid, which is so cool. Are you switching sides, Angie? Okay. Cool. Thanks. So yeah, that was I think that was the year. I think so. It could have been the year before. Either way, sophomore year. Oh, sophomore year. Speaking of the dances that happened, I moved dorms to a different dorm, slightly nicer dorm. And, like always, would go to the dances, go get a little tipsy and go to the dance and dance with people. And there I danced with a neighbor of mine, the person who lived next door to me, which was a risky move on my part because you can't change your neighbors. I danced with a neighbor at the Kagan dance. And then we walked from the Kagan dance elsewhere down to, I guess, the river. And I'm not going to lie, that evening I was looking to hook up with this person. But what happened, switching hands with the microphone, hold on. What ended up happening was this turned into like a year-long relationship. And she is a sweetie. She was very cute. I'll give her name to be Trisha. She and I, because we were neighbors, it was a very convenient relationship. We literally would walk next door, and it was great. And we had stuff in common too. I think we had a lot of fun together. I at one point, went up to meet her. I met her parents. I think she probably met mine at a certain point. But really, I don't have all that much to say about our year or so together because of the way it kind of fell apart, which was I guess it would have been, I'm trying to think how this happened. If we had first the whole of junior year together, sophomore year together, and then, or the majority of it together, and then beginning of junior year, summer and going into the fall, I was studying abroad in Scotland. And because I was a little scoundrel, and because, again, I could not form really good relationships with people because I didn't like myself at the time. I know it's not a good excuse, but it is the only explanation I have. I was studying abroad in Scotland the first semester junior year, and I basically worked it out with her like, hey, I would like to be able to have flings with people while I'm there. And she reluctantly agreed to that. And while I was in Scotland, I met the person who eventually became the most significant pre-transition relationship I had. the way that I met her was, and I'll give her a good name. Let's see. The person I met in Scotland would have been named Greta. So Greta and I were in the same exchange program. She was American. She was from the East Coast. So she and I were like we might have even been on like a similar flight to Scotland. And when you get there, the way they do it is instead of, we were in Glasgow, we were going to study in Glasgow for that semester, but you meet in Edinburgh and you do like a couple days touring there. You get on a bus and there's like a whole thing. There's also like a homestay program. So day one, Greta was there and we were like pretty friendly to begin with. And we immediately kind of established ourselves as the cool kids on the trip, which again, not proud of that. But we thought we were the cool ones. And they were the nerds and we were the cool ones. And the first couple of nights, nothing really happened. We had fun in Edinburgh. But then we got placed on the homestay section of the trip, which was these random people in either like Northern England or Scotland say like, yes, I would like to host an American kid and show them around for a day or two. And it was me, Greta, and two other guys. And staying with this very nice old lady in Northern England. She had a nice little house. Me and the two other boys were placed in one bedroom with like 3 little cots, and Greta was placed in her own bedroom. Now, I remember this night, the first night, because this was the night that, or this was the time when the song "What Does the Fox Say" was very popular. Do you remember that, Angie? Probably not. Probably better. What does the fox say? Ding 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 ding. It was like a comedy song. It was a viral YouTube video. It actually made the charts. Yeah. It was silly. It was a silly moment for us as humanity to have that song be popular. It was a catchy song though. Anyways, I remember because the two other guys could not stop playing that song on their phone. They just loved it so much. And I was like, oh boy. Now here's the thing. I had been laying down some flirting with Greta that whole day. On the car ride up, I was interested. Turns out so was she. And I remember listening to "What Does the Fox Say" in the bedroom that we were in, knowing Greta was across the hall. And I was like, okay, I want to make a move here. I want to make a move. You got this, Lily. I got up, I knocked on her door, and I said, hey, it's pretty cold in my room. And she just kind of like, get in here. And thus began a semester-long, it wasn't a fling. It was a relationship. Honestly, we were together. We were an item for sure, even though I didn't like to admit it. We were also really good friends, which was the first time that truly, even with, oh shoot, what was her name? Did I call her Stacy? Trish? I forget. The one who was at home in Minnesota. She was aware of this, but there was nothing really I could do. I was kind of just like, yeah, I kind of have a girlfriend here. Anyways, again, not proud of this. But, yeah, so Greta and I were like pretty inseparable that semester. And we did most things together. And, we had very similar senses of humor and outlooks on the world. And we like to go party together and, snuggle and do all these things. Once that semester, and also I did have another hookup friend in Scotland who she was aware of but not happy about. who she was Scottish and just so cute. We just hooked up a couple times. It was fun. But anyways, after that semester ended, Greta and I stayed in contact. And I got back to Minnesota, and I guess I think her name was Trish or something, the one who was still there, kind of realized this as soon as I got back. And I realized, like, oh, I'm still thinking about Greta. And that's not a good sign, because I think the thing I had with Greta was much stronger than the thing I had with Trish. And I'm realizing this by comparison, that even though me and Trish both went back to our respective schools, which are in different parts of the country, I would rather be with Greta. So I broke up with Trish after having her wait for a semester for me to come back. I know it's bad. I regret it. But it's what happened. It is what I did. And that began like kind of the difficult couple of years for me, which was that even though I broke up with Trish, Greta was still not there. And that's when I kind of just there was a deep depression there of like, you know, when have you ever broken up with someone and you knew at the time it was the right thing to do, but then like 2 months later, your brain's like, hey, they were the only one that ever loved you and the only chance you'll ever have of happiness. Ever done that? Right? Where like you second guess yourself and romanticize a person in a way that isn't real, but you can't stop thinking about them. That's kind of what happened, which was a stupid thing. And I just made myself miserable there. However, I did have another hookup friend named Babette. I don't know. I'm just coming up with names. Babette. That's a fun name. Again, they're all people roughly my age. I know I'm coming up with kind of like early 1900s names, but Babette was she was a sophomore. I was a junior, senior. And she was so much fun. She and I really got into some stuff that was interesting. Like we would just do it all over the school. We'd do it in the library. We'd do it in the elevator, in the buildings, in like the English building. We did it on the rooftop, you name it. We did it there. It was fun. We also, we were like a thing kind of for like a year and a half. Honestly, you know, we weren't friends in the same way that me and Greta were friends, because that relationship still existed, and she was coming to visit every once in a while and I would go visit her. We were still like big in each other's lives. But yeah, like, Babette and I were just kind of like really good at doing it together, and we'd do it often, but we so rarely would just hang out, if that makes sense. It was almost always in the context of intimacy. Eventually, I graduated and I moved down to Atlanta. So Babette said goodbye to her. But because Greta and I had kind of always been long distance friends / people who were into each other, it didn't really matter. We stayed in contact. And at this point, Greta had a boyfriend who, if I recall at the time, because we were the same age, so she had graduated. I think that she moved in with her parents, Greta did, and so did her boyfriend. So they were living with parents. And I think that was tough on their relationship. And also my existence was tough on their relationship, because Greta was interested in me more than her boyfriend. At least that's what she said. And as we would like, and she would like come and visit me in Atlanta and cheat on her boyfriend with me. And I'm pretty sure he knew this was happening and just kind of took it. Eventually, I convinced Greta to move to Atlanta. to be with me. Which was, I tried to phrase it at the time kind of to like hedge my bets, I guess. Like, hey, who knows about us, capital US, us. But like, you need to get out of your parents' house. You want to get out of your parents' house. Why not move to Atlanta? I can help you get a job. And like, hopefully it works out between us. But if it doesn't, okay. Now, you can say that, but I think she moved probably mostly for me. She did get out of her parents' house, which is good. And to this day, she still lives in Atlanta. But as far as I know, she moved here. And we went from being like two people who had met as like a fling in Scotland in 2013 to like a real relationship in Atlanta in 2018, 5 years later. And we had been friends at that point for so long. We were a big part of each other's lives. I knew her parents. She knew my parents. It was like a whole thing. We probably had about a year together when things started falling apart. And I think it was a combination of a couple things. She had her own issues that she was dealing with. Neither of us were dealing with our issues particularly well. I was my gender issues and substance issues were really coming to the front at that point, right? Like there comes a certain point where as a trans person, and everyone gets there at different points, but you either have to transition or you're not going to make it. And I know that's dark, but it's true. And I was hitting that point at around 2018, 2019, where I was just miserable in my life. And I could not go much longer as like pretending to be this guy that I was pretending to be. And so my world was crumbling, and I could not maintain my relationship with Greta. I just couldn't. And the tough part was I couldn't verbalize it to her because I didn't know how to say like, hey, there's this thing that's happening to me right now. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know that it's actually that I'm trans and, things are going to get better, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't know. And I like need to be alone so I can figure this out. Like I couldn't tell her that because I didn't know. So what that resulted in was me not understanding why I was falling apart and breaking up with her in the messiest way possible. It was not fun for me or for her because I still really liked her, but I needed to be alone. And that made it very difficult over the next couple of years because I was like, oh, did I make a mistake? I didn't really have a reason for breaking up with her other than this unnamed thing that I still can't figure out, right? Like even the whole year of 2019, I was just like, who am I? What am I doing here? Why did I break up with this person who meant so much to me? I don't understand substance abuse, et cetera, et cetera. And, eventually it became clear that it actually was that I was trans, right? Early 2020 was when I kind of started thinking about it, and I subconsciously got a job in San Francisco so, that I could transition. And I went there and I did. But, it was a long road. But, certainly my realest relationship was with Greta. And I now know that look, I haven't checked in on her in a while. Like I haven't looked at her stuff in a while, but last time I did, maybe a couple of years ago, it looked like she had a serious long-term partner, which is great for her. So anyways, that was that. I left Atlanta. I had a couple of flings here and there, but nothing real. By the time I got to San Francisco, I was like, okay, I'm trans. Let's do this. And then began like a year or two of nothing, because I was when you start your transition, you really have to it's really like you rebuild yourself in a big way. It's hard to rebuild yourself, and you have to kind of throw away all of the things you might have used to lean on, right? Like I was quote unquote a good looking man. A lot of people will point that out in my comment section, which is not cool to do, by the way. But I'll be like, yeah, you were such a good looking guy. I was like, yeah. To a lot of people, I was good looking, but not to myself. But that was something that I could kind of take pride in a sort of like indirect way of like, even though I don't like how I look, people value me because of my good looks. And that's good, right? Does that make sense? Of like, it was a way I could feel confident even though I didn't feel confident. All these things that I'd kind of like used to built up to protect myself and make my way through the world, you have to get rid of them, right? Because as soon as you shave your beard and start taking estrogen and wearing dresses, like there's a whole segment of people who used to be interested in you and no longer interested in you romantically. And because of that, you lose a lot of confidence. You have to build yourself back up in a more authentic way. And that takes a while. So from late 2020 to early 2022, mid 2022, it was like nothing for me. And I remember the first time that I had any kind of date was February 2022. I had a date that ended up just being a one night stand with a woman who was very nice. And we went and got drinks somewhere, and then back to my apartment and did it. But I remember that I kind of, because I was the first time I was intimate with someone post-transition, I kind of assumed the same role in the bedroom that I had before, which was pretending to be this like dom man. Like, yeah, that's right. I'm like the strong man that's going to like, dominate. And it was the thing that I learned people wanted from me. And so I got good at doing it. But post transition, I hadn't done it. And it was like, oh, I hate this so much. This is not me. So I never saw that person again because of it, which was, again, on me. Yeah. And so, again, rebuilding, you have to figure out who you are again. I didn't do much in the way of dating for the most of 2022 until the end, where I went to the Folsom Street Fair and did it in front of like 50 people. First time I ever did. I went and was in like the femme tent. There's this whole tent there where it's just like freaking orgy in that tent. And just like was in like this major scene with a whole bunch of, it was great. But even then, I really didn't do much from late 2022 to when I met Katie this past summer. So that kind of brings you up to speed on my dating life. There's other people in there. There was a in 2015. There was like when I had just moved to Atlanta. There's someone who worked at a tea store that I flirted with and I dated for a couple months. She was a sweetie, but also same thing happened of like, oh, I don't like myself. I need to break up with you because there's something wrong here with me. Turns out there's nothing wrong. It was just that I wasn't being myself. But I remember I broke up with this person, the tea girl. She was so sweet and very cute and tall too. I like that. I remember I broke up with her on FaceTime and I was like, I'm breaking up with you because I do not like myself. It was the most honest I'd been at that point to myself. And I remember I quoted a Katy Perry song to her. I was like, yeah, I'm hot and I'm cold. I really went for it in that breakup. I made her laugh while she was crying and I was crying. Anyways, that's my dating history. Anyone else? Plenty of hookups in between. Any other notable stories? I mean, like there's sexy stories, but those are less important, at least to this particular timeline. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. What do you think, Angie? Yeah? You enjoyed the timeline story? You learned a lot about me. Good. We're a little over a quarter of the way through today. How's that? We're getting there. Is there anything else you want to know about me? Any other like types of things that you don't know much about yet? my.
What do you like to cook?
What do I like to cook?
Cook?
Um,
I know you like to eat out and eat.
I do like to eat out.
Yeah.
Wink. Um, yeah. Let's see. Okay, food. I can talk about food a little bit. Did I ever tell you that I taught cooking classes?
No.
That's a fun one. Do I cook these days? Not really. What streaming Monday through Friday. I have one big meal a day, so I don't really need to cook. I'll have like snacks at home, but and even on the weekends, I'm usually too tired to cook. So no, I don't usually. Sometimes though. Usually I just eat out or
Yeah.
I'll like boil like frozen dumplings or something. But yeah, cooking. I can tell you about my cooking experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a big part of my life that I love to talk about, so that's a good one. Okay. Back when I was little, I started going to a summer camp in the mountains of Georgia. That was a big part of my life for many years. I was a camper there for 7 years. My mom went to that summer camp when she was little. My brother also went to this summer camp. And when you go, it's a sleepaway camp. It's like you have cabins, you have counselors, all these different things. You've ever seen Wet Hot American Summer? That's what it's like. Even though that movie is crazy and ridiculous and silly, like the vibes are spot on. And when you go back every year for a month after year after year after year, and everyone who's when you start year one, you're in the cabin with people that you're in the cabin with year 7 or 8. These are your lifelong friends, right? And it's different than like real life relationships because you live in a cabin with someone for a month. The relationships you build at camp are unlike elsewhere. They are deeper and more authentic, and it's a hugely powerful way to grow up at camp. So after I, did my years at camp, I wanted to work there, as many people do. It's kind of like the next step is you get to be a counselor or a specialist, and you get to kind of forge the experience for the kids that were forged for you, the experiences that were forged for you, and be a part of it just in a more like, I don't know, not authoritative. You get to be the creator as opposed to the experiencer, experiencee. Now, there's 2 kinds of things you can do when you graduate to be 18 and be able to like work at camp. You can either be the counselor that takes care of the kids. They're kind of like the shepherds. The kids all live in a cabin, and they have typically there's 10 kids, 2 counselors. And they all sleep in the same room, in the same cabin. The counselors have like single beds and the kids are in bunk beds. And every morning the counselors wake up the kids, get them to breakfast, and kind of like go about their day with the kids. Follow them around from activity to activity, kind of like mom and dad, or mom and mom or dad and dad for the duration of the summer. They are the parents. They don't necessarily run the arts and crafts or run the soccer games or they're just there to kind of keep watch and help with anything that might arise, right? Like they know the kids best. They know they're there to help solve like conflict and that kind of thing. Then there's also the specialists. And the specialists are the ones running the activity, right? So you can be an arts and crafts specialist, and you're the one that you hang out at the arts and crafts building all day. Different groups of kids come through. You make stuff with them. You still have an important role to play because, you're there to create the experience just in a slightly different way. You're like the fun aunt and uncle of camp. So you can choose which role fits you better. And for me, the specialist was the right one because I couldn't be a counselor because I sleepwalk. I know, funny, but it's very serious, actually. I have sleptwalk out of a second-story window, jumped out of a second-story window once. I have hurt myself. I scream often. I'm a spectacle when I sleep. It was much worse pre-transition. It's much better now, but it was bad at that point. so I knew I could not, I definitely couldn't sleep in the cabin with kids, much less be responsible for them at night. Like, absolutely not. I'd be like a threat. Which is why I knew I never wanted to do that, right? And if you're a specialist, you get to sleep elsewhere. So I knew I needed to be a specialist. What should I do, though? I'm not a sports person. I'm not a particularly artsy person. Maybe there's like a theater specialist that I could have maybe done because I was in theater. I didn't really want to do that. There was a very interesting role called the cooking specialist. Now you would think, oh, cooking. So what? You're like making lunch and dinner for everyone? No. There are special staff who do that. That's not me. That would have, the cooking specialist had their own special little instructional kitchen. If you ever been to like a sur la table or like done a cooking class, it's like a kitchen that has a bunch of tables, a bunch of like cutting boards and like, ovens and all these different things. And you go to the instructional kitchen and there's an instructional chef who's like, hello, everybody. Today we're going to be making soup or pasta. Today we're making ice cream or whatever. And then they walk you through how to make it, and you make it, and then you eat it. And it's like a whole experience. That's what this specialist did. And that's what I did. So I had an instructional kitchen for 5 summers. 5 summers. 5 full months of this over 5 years. No, 10 full months because I was 2 months per summer. And the way that it would work is I would go to the main big kitchen that would, be making meals for everybody. And get my supplies, whatever those may be. I got to decide what kind of food we were going to make. Normally, because it was a Jewish summer camp, and normally be stuff like latkes or matzo ball soup or whatever. I'd bring it all back to my instructional kitchen. And then every day, I'd have 7 different groups of kids come through. Aging between 8 years olds. And every group was like the same age. It wasn't like a mixed group. It'd be like 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds. And they would come through. And for about an hour, from start to finish, we would make food together. And it was an experience. I learned a lot about cooking, yes, but really about like how to manage people, how to talk to people, how to motivate people. Because eventually I learned that like people were like the kids really wanted to cook. They wanted to like have responsibility. A group of 8-year-olds were tough because they didn't have kind of like the what's it called? The dexterity, the hand-eye coordination that you needed to like wield a knife, for example. But they're good at mixing things with their hands, so they could make cookies possibly. 12-year-olds, on the other hand, could really do everything you needed them to do in the kitchen. So eventually the way that my kitchen would work is I'd be standing there in my kitchen. I'd be wearing a woman's apron. That was one of my first memories of gender euphoria. I'd always have a women's apron, and people would be like, why are you wearing a women's apron? I was like, I'm comfortable in my masculinity. That was my excuse. It was very fun. So I'd be standing there. Everyone would filter in. They'd all wash their hands. And then I'd stand in front of them and be like, all right, today we are making matzo ball soup. As you can see, there's all these different induction burners and all these pots and pans around. You're going to chop the onions. You're going to chop the celery and the carrots, and then you're going to put them in. And the thing I learned was the most fun way of doing it was I did not say who had to do what job, right? Like some kids would like really need to know whose job was whose and couldn't assign it to themselves. And I would be very explicit, like, hey, I'm not going to say whose job is whose. It's on y'all to figure out who's doing what. You have to decide these things, right? And that was kind of like a part of it. And I got really good at it. I got really good at running this instructional kitchen, and it became a favorite activity for a lot of kids. And I got known over the years as being the Jewish cooking dude. That was my nickname. And I was known for doing these raps because the first day of camp, when you go around, you don't do the activities. You just listen to everyone talk about the activities. Like, all right, in arts and crafts this year we're doing mosaics, and in drama this year we're doing Grease, the show, and then I'd get up and like do a rap about cooking, and everyone would, and I'd always fill up immediately. Like kids would sprint to my sign up sheet, because even if they didn't want to cook, they wanted to eat, because camp food kind of stinks. It's just like really bad food. So to have a place where you could get a yummy cookie was invaluable. So yeah, I did that for 5 summers, and I can't say I really, I can't say I became like a really good chef there, because I didn't. I learned how to cook. I definitely got better at cooking there, but the thing about it is there's only so many Jewish foods you can cook, right? I'll try and name all of them. There's matzo ball soup. There's latkes, which are fried potato pancakes. There's hamantaschen, which are triangular cookies. There's rugula, which is like a cream cheese cinnamon cookie. There's matzo brie, which is kind of like a French toast. There's a couple others, but really, I might have had like 8 or 9 different dishes that I got really good at running the activity for. And it was just over and over again, because I'd always have new kids. So I got really good at cooking. Oh, kugel. Do you know kugel?
Oh, yes.
Kugel's delicious. It's like, it's kind of like kugel's one of those things that sounds like it shouldn't be delicious, but it is. It's a dairy casserole. It's kind of like, trying to think of like the closest thing to compare it to. It's like what if pasta was sweet? Like noodles. It's like sweet fettuccine alfredo. I know that doesn't make it sound good. I know, but I promise it's good. That was another one. That was probably my favorite day. And we'd also do like on the weekends, on Saturdays, we'd get to do like a slightly different type of program. So, it was called, there was a thing called mandatory optionals every Saturday, where it was mandatory that you had to do something, but it was optional what you got to do. Instead of getting assigned, like, your bunk is going here today, you got to just run around camp and do whatever. Like, you could go swimming, or you could go to arts and crafts, or you could go play sports, or you could, hang out at the fire circle with whatever. I did this special Harry Potter activity one summer that was really fun, where basically we're just making like pretzel rod things, pretzel rods that kind of look like a magic wand, but they're pretzels, and we'd cover them in frosting and sprinkles and eat them. But there was a whole activity I had around it where they had to like get sorted into by the sorting hat when they came into my kitchen, and music was playing, and there was like a feather on a string that someone had to cast a spell on, and it got pulled up, and the lights would turn on and off, or they had to cast a spell to turn them on, and it was just like a whole thing. It's just a vibe at camp. I love summer camp. It was a really good it was a place that I could be myself more than anywhere else. I learned a lot about myself there. But yeah, other than that, I don't really cook these days. I know how. I can cook something. If you give me a recipe, I can cook basically anything. I can't promise it will be good, but I can't cook it. My arm's starting to get sore. I think we might call it here. An hour and a half. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty good episode. Anything else before we go, Angie? Any other things? Questions about? I don't know. I don't even. We just have all this time, but I get my hands are getting kind of sore holding up my phone. If you're listening to this, there is a video version. I am holding up my phone kind of like angled up to my face while I'm lying down getting this electrolysis. Oh, lunch. We're going to break for lunch in 30 minutes. Did you bring lunch, Angie?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you bring?
Well, you got my peanut butter and jelly
I like peanut butter and jelly on brioche.
Peanut butter and jelly on brioche, and I got some homemade vegetable soup someone brought me.
Okay,
So
that's nice.
the more I have that too.
Homemade vegetable soup. I dig
What
it.
do you have?
I haven't brought anything, so I don't know.
Anything?
No, I had to run out of the house because I was playing video games before. At like 8:45, I was sitting on my desk chair playing video games, and I actually had to leave early, which was sad. But then I lime scootered over here. I was like zigging and zagging on the scooter. I was zigging and zagging. I like lime scooters. They're so dangerous, but in because I don't have a car and I don't get to drive anymore, they kind of like scratch that itch for me of commanding a motor vehicle. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening. I hope this kept you company. If you're on YouTube, please do leave a comment and or thumbs up or subscribe or whatever. Or don't. I don't know. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not. Oh, that one hurts. I'm not your boss. Angie's my boss today. If you're on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars and a review goes a long way. I appreciate it. If you're on Spotify, I think you can only give stars on Spotify, so please drop a rating. Anyways, I love y'all. Thank you for listening. I'm recording this on the 23rd, yes, of December 2023. I'm not going to be streaming on Monday because it's going to be a full day Discord stream. So if you're listening to this before Christmas, now you know. If it's after Christmas, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Maybe you're listening to this in 2024. If so, hello. It's me from the past. Hello, future people. I hope 2024 is good so far. All right. My hand's getting sore. I love you. Stay lovely. Goodbye.